What do you get when you combine a world-class EMS physician and medical director
I speak pretty good English for a guy from Detroit.
with an EMS veteran and all-around nice guy?
Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, that's so good. Oh, my God.
Well, you get the EMS Show. Taking it to the people, here's your host, Dr. Ritu Sahni and Mike Vercast.
Well, taking it to the people indeed. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on a very special episode. We've had a lot of special episodes lately, but I think this one is going to be one of my favorites. So again, Dr. Ritu Sahni and our old buddy, Rob Lawrence, who you will see his e-hole here in a little bit, by the way.
Boom, boom.
You
You will see
all will be
Rob
explained, ladies and
Lawrence's
gentlemen.
E-hole. That's right.
I mean,
You threw
that was
that in. We were
hilarious.
not
And you
expecting
guys both let me down on that. That was a damn good, that was a damn good intro. And you know, I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if it's
I
an
hadn't
age
got that
thing,
far. And I hadn't
generational
turned the
thing.
page on the script over, Mikey. I'm sorry, mate. Well, can we do it again? Oh no, we're live. Never mind.
script. We're live for
Yeah.
3 people. I think it's us that's watched the 3 of us.
Yeah, it's true. Well, we're going to have a great discussion. It's the crossover of the century. If you didn't catch that in all the billing and all the advertising dollars that were spent on letting people know that we're going to be talking about F1, and of course we're going to have to talk a little bit about college American football. Rob, so
Foosball.
keep that straight.
American. Oh, I'm glad you. I'm
But
glad
that's-
you qualified that. American football.
Yes.
That's the.
I will
the
actually
game you
be
play
in
with the
Las Vegas
hands, right?
tomorrow. I will be in Las Vegas tomorrow
I just left there.
because
So
I'm
am I.
going to
There we
watch. I'm going to watch these Oregon Ducks take on them Washington Huskies for the Pac-12 title game. So I'm excited to go and visit my son Christian, and we're going to the game Friday. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately working. That's going to be a good football game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Michigan versus everybody. Is that a Barstool shirt?
No, I got it from Emden.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's a Detroit thing.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
you know,
Yeah.
the guy I'm not a big Barstool fan, but Portnoy, the guy who like started Barstool and stuff, he's a Michigan grad.
mhm. Yes.
So
Yeah, I like his pizza reviews.
yeah, I said not a big Barstool guy.
All right. Well,
So are
That's
you feeling
okay. Well-
confident about tomorrow? I mean, most of the people this will already have happened, but
yes, by the time people listen, so I tend to hedge my bets on those things. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know. I feel like there's this graph. There's the Oregon trajectory, and then there's the Washington trajectory based on past performance the last 5 or 6 games. And I think we're at this point where we're sort of meeting like this. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know.
Ben's already talking
We'll
smack
find
about
out.
the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, too early. Too early. Too early.
So
Well, listen. Hey, so if you are listening to this, this one is going to be more of a heavy visual thing because both Ritu and Rob, obviously, we're at the race. We have pictures. We've got visual aids. So if you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh man, I wish I could see what they were saying," you can go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook. You can find the replay. You can look at all the things we're going to talk about. But I really want to jump right in because we've got a lot of ground to cover. And as soon as kind of the event was over, we were all sort of like talking to each other and thinking, man, there's a lot of cool like lessons identified. There's a lot of great, just different perspectives, right? Watching, Rob as a marshal, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and kind of how those different perspectives were. And then, what kind of things can we learn and apply to our jobs in EMS? and turns out there's going to be a lot of them. So shall we just jump in?
Let's just jump in. Why not?
Let's
do
just
it.
jump in.
All right. Well, first of all, here's the first of the slides, and this was a great. Rob so eloquently started us a little chat group, and it was called the F1 Insider during the week there, and it was cool to see you guys actually get to connect during the race. So that was really awesome.
They let us outside the wire for a little while, and the Cosmopolitan, which was close to where Ritu was probably the best. That had a Starbucks, right? So literally we could get off and run out for a quick Starbucks and then run back in again. So that's where Ritu and I met. So the not an exit is not an exit from Starbucks in the Cosmo.
Yeah, they had that long,
so funny.
and we'll talk more about it, but they had the long delay. Anybody who sort of was following the race knew about the kind of shit show that practice one became, all 8 minutes of it. And they had that long delay between P1 and P2, which was plenty of time for us to go into the Cosmo and go to the Chandelier Bar. And I think actually I was then at the Donkey Bar when you texted me. No, we were in the Chandelier Bar, and and then we went to the Donkey Bar, and then and that was kind of right near where you were, so it was good to sit and talk for a few minutes.
No, it was fantastic. I mean, it's interesting because you're wearing a kind of a official looking garb, and of course everyone stops you to ask you for the inside track on anything and everything to do with Formula One. And well, I don't know, it's my first hour, So it was interesting. I mean, the fans and the enthusiasts were, there was a lot of downplaying and down talking, and particularly Verstappen, right, about how this was going to be a complete waste of time and not enjoyed by everybody. But actually, the buzz was there, even on as Ritu said, on FP1 when it turned into an 8-minute race. I had a 12-hour day for an 8-minute race, by the way, 12-hour sort of shift day. But the buzz was there. People were excited for it to be there, and not just those ones that were paying, the $1.2 million package to watch the cars go by. Everybody, I think.
My package, I paid a little bit less than that, than the 1.2 million.
It was like 5.6 million, wasn't it?
Just a tiny bit less. It wasn't cheap though. It wasn't cheap, but it was definitely not one of the high end places. We were in what was called the MGM zone. So the way kind of it worked is there were stands in places that the Grand Prix of Las Vegas ran, which was Formula One was running it. And then there were places that the hotels ran. And so we had gotten our package through MGM. And so all that Bellagio stuff was run by MGM, which is why we were able to watch P2. We didn't get kicked. I was actually able to watch P2, but at 3 a.m. But it was very convenient because we were staying in one of the MGM properties. We were staying at the Park MGM, and we were just able to take the little they have a little tram that runs right to Bellagio, and you walked right outside the Bellagio front door and into the grandstands. And they had 2 grandstands, the Bellagio grandstands, and then in between them they had the Bellagio Fountain Club, which I was not permitted into. And those seats were, the Fountain Club seats were $11,000 a person.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But the grandstand was quite a bit less. And then that came with food, but you had to buy, I don't know if I sent you the prices on the drinks. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I didn't put those in here, but
yeah.
It was expensive for a cocktail. Was it like $23?
It was $26 for a cocktail. It was $18 for a beer.
That's the Sphere prices on a normal day, by the way, if you ever go in there.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yep.
Well, that's a really good segue, kind of talking about sort of your experience leading up to it. And then in the meantime, I was trying to figure out a way how I could get to this race. Right. But with ticket prices being outrageous, flights being outrageous, all this stuff being outrageous, even Rob, who lives in the city, probably wasn't going to go. Right. And so one day out of the blue, and I wish I could remember when it was, but I think, Rob, you sent me a text or a messenger or something like that saying that you had seen that they were looking for marshals for the race.
Yeah,
And I
local
thought, well,
Vegas
maybe
newspaper.
that's the ticket.
Yeah, it was a ticket.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, maybe that's the
F1.
ticket. Maybe.
So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, like
F1.
maybe that's how I can get in and get there and start doing it. And so we both applied, and I shortly after, probably a couple weeks, and I think I sent it to my son Caleb, who's watching. He applied also. We got denied, but you didn't.
I didn't. And here's the funny thing. You had to write. So I applied, and I'm thinking this is never going to happen to me, because one of the things you have to put on there is your motor racing marshalling experience, or whatever your certifications were.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
literally wrote, I have no experience, but keep reading. I'm a former EMS chief in 3 locations, 2 continents. I have my ICS certifications. I've been a unified commander in everything. You know, I can change a bandage and put a fire out, pretty much, sort of essay. And I sent it off and thought, well, you know, and this is a lesson. This is takeaway number 1. You know, you got to be in it to win it. If you don't apply, you don't get into stuff, then you're not going to get selected or even have a chance of. And so, you know, we were exchanging notes, and I went through the background check came in. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll fill in the background check. Still no hope in hell. And the next thing I get an email saying you're in, and I called you, Mikey, and you weren't in. So sorry about
that. Yeah,
well,
I got to.
I'm surprised they. Sorry, go ahead. We're just walking all over each other tonight. I don't know if this is there's a delay going on or what, but I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, I was just going to say that when I was an EMS fellow back at Pittsburgh, I got to do track physician at an IndyCar race, and that had a really interesting and exciting and very similar experience. Although as a doc, I got the special pass that allowed me to go everywhere and anywhere. And they just said, here, hold this radio, and if we need you, we'll call you. So they're just like, I'm like, do you need me in one location? And they said, no, there's 3 or 4 of you here. One of you needs to be in this building. So one would stay in the building in the infirmary, which at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, the infirmary is on the start finish line. So it's the best seat in the house, actually. And the rest of us kind of walked around with a radio and a little pass that said hot pass anywhere. It was very cool.
Nice. So, but yeah, I mean, yes. I think to Rob's point, our takeaway number 1 is, and this is great. This is, are you trying to, if you're trying to find a job somewhere, if you're going for a promotion somewhere, if you want to speak at an EMS conference, you need to advocate for yourself, right? Put in your experience. Rob didn't have any experience being a marshal. Good thing they didn't hear his accent, because they would have obviously in, because he's British. So he must be a perfect fit, right? But yeah, so be all in, right?
Yeah, be in it to win it. I mean, it comes EMS, corollary. When I was the chief at Richmond, for 10 years, we won pretty much every award going, from EMS Agency of the Year, you name it, we won it. And people go, how come you're winning all this stuff? I'm like, are you entering? Well, no. Well, you're not winning and we are. You got to enter. You got to be in it.
Yeah, and I mean, the worst thing that could happen is you don't get selected, which is the same thing that happens when you don't enter.
Correct.
It feels like in some ways you're putting yourself out there, but you're not, because the outcome is the same if you don't get picked or you don't do anything. So the only different outcome would be getting selected, which is cool.
Yep, absolutely.
So next thing
there's the kit and equipment you're issued.
Yep. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of your safety gear here?
Yeah, so we're jumping a little bit ahead, but I mean, this whole sort of ton of equipment you get from.
We can come back to it.
Well, no, as we're up, I mean, it's some interesting things there. 3 pairs of gloves, which I naively thought at first, whether it's cold, warm, or warmer. And of course, the inner cotton glove is the inner glove. The rubber glove, which you put on second, is actually to insulate you from the electrics on the car. And then the leather glove is to protect you from the carbon fiber when the car falls to pieces. And so you wear all 3 as a set. And you have to sort of show that they're on. We'll talk about that in a minute. And obviously the bibs are individually numbered. So when they catch you on television or on closed circuit TV, and F1 have both, they control all of the TV rights for the races. and they also have little individual sort of spy camera thingies everywhere. And so if you do something untoward, they can say marshal number get off the track or move back or whatever. Or in the case of 3 marshals that decided to go on the pit walk, right, that obviously were spotted on the cameras and hauled off fairly quickly. So whilst you have access to most places, you didn't have access to talk to Martin Brundle when he's doing his pre-match walk around. So the most important bit was the whistle, because the communication when you've got those cars and Ritus, when the cars are going past, you can't just yell, "Oi, Mike!" You got to blow the whistle first to get attention. And so it's a bit old school, but actually, old school sometimes is the only way to do it. Perhaps that's takeaway number 2.
The rubber gloves bring up kind of what I think is a cool point, is that most people don't realize or don't understand that these cars are hybrids.
Yep.
That they are they have gasoline fuel, but a lot of it is used to charge a battery.
Yep.
And that they actually get extra horsepower when they engage the battery. And we'll see. I think we'll see all the emergency equipment or the but one of the things that I learned about was when the car comes to a halt, there's a light on top that blinks that tells you that the car is electrified and that you should not contact it. And that the drivers are supposed to, if they see that, they're either supposed to stay in the vehicle or sort of jump off the car, not ground themselves while they're in the car.
Yeah. And we've got that slide coming up at some point where you can see what the status of the car is. And so this is, so there are 500 marshals on the track. And so you think about the logistics of that, because the marshals were assembling in the Luxor. And if you know the Las Vegas Strip, it's at the south end of the Strip. And you have to get all those people in what were, I think, 10 buses in one go out onto the track. And so just the logistic effort of getting everybody in, having the briefing in there, getting everybody onto the bus, getting the buses out to the post, getting people, the buses off track, etc. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. And so in order to run that, what was 8 minutes of race, there is something clearly, there's a lot of logistics that go into it, a lot of pre-planning and a lot of time and effort by everybody to get everybody in the right kit at the right place at the right time. And so, organization is absolutely essential here. And, to appreciate the effort that's gone into organizing this thing, what you see on television, of course, is like any event, any sport, anything. The lead up to it takes far, far longer than the actual execution. If you think about the amount of racing, Ritu, we physically saw in terms of time, right? So 2 hours in the main race,
it's not much.
One practice. There's not a lot for the time and effort that goes into it. And that's prior to that. Of course, in Las Vegas, we have had traffic disaster for the last 3 months because of not only do they have to prepare the track in terms of putting the walls up, but for 3 months have had to re-asphalt the whole track to about 7-8 inches. So not only are they laying, but before they can lay 7-8 inches, they have to take 7-8 inches off and take it away and move it. And so the preparation, and it's the rule of P's, Mikey. Prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. There's a takeaway for you. The 7P
Indeed.
rule. And certainly that came into effect here. And it looks like a Ghostbuster convention, I have to admit.
Who you going to call? Bob Lawrence.
Yes. There we go. 7 P's. Perfect.
That's so funny.
It's
and here's another
pig.
P. Look, here's the pig.
It's the upside down pig.
I guess this comes back to logistics and preparation. Again, this was the chart around all the walls in the briefing area, and it represents where the marshal posts are, where the rescue posts are, where the extraction posts are. And of course, there's a lot of moving parts. Excuse the pun. A lot of moving parts here, and a lot of people just standing by to. We're standing by to stand by, and there is definitely a lot of involvement in there. And yes, the course does resemble an upside down pig, and I think Ritu, you mentioned there's memes galore of Homer Simpson and the other such memes flying around the place.
Yeah, and I think for those that are not watching but listening, we're talking about the layout of the track, and I think a couple things that are interesting to point out. And again, there's just gobs and gobs of various support structures and people stationed throughout the track. You can see there's not just marshals, but there's there's medical helicopter right on site. There's ambulances. There were guys riding around in little trucks carrying blowers to blow stuff off the track, and all that stuff is positioned where I was sitting. I could see to my left, I could see one of the big cranes that was just positioned to come out on the straightaway. The track itself, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you've been to Vegas, the main back straightaway was right down the strip. It was in the middle of the strip. We sat in front of our seats were in front of the Bellagio fountain. So when I walked up to the top of my grandstand and turned around, the fountain was going and you could see it.
That's cool.
I mean, in the strip, to Rob's point, I mean, the strip was open during the day, so they closed it at night for the race, and then they reopened it. But the circuit itself is almost 4 miles long, 3.8 miles, and these cars do a lap in about a minute 34. So in 94 seconds, they're going 3.8 miles. I mean,
216 miles an hour, Dan. We're past you, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were sitting on the back straight. Right, turn 13 is more of a, I don't know, a gradual kind of turn your wheel a little bit. They were hitting top speed. We were in a DRS zone. So yeah, they were hitting 214, 215 miles an hour, which, I've only driven that fast a couple times on the strip, not that often. So it was really just amazing. It was an incredible physics lesson at work to see these things go by. And like I said, I've seen an IndyCar race, and IndyCars go really fast, but I think in an oval, they go faster than what we see here, because I think they go up 225, 230, 235 even on an oval race. Yeah. But on a street course, I don't think the Indy cars are as fast as the Formula One cars. And because I'd only ever been to a street race with Indy cars, and I just have never seen anything like this. And again, just the magnitude of the event and just the sheer physics on display in front of you is pretty eye-opening, and it's pretty phenomenal, pretty exciting to see.
And maybe just to orient people, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, so Ritu was if you look at the upside down pig, you got the front legs, I guess, if you will, up there where it says 6, 7, 8, 9. That's where the sphere is at. It's up in that area.
Yeah.
And then they come down, they hit that turn 12, and then that 12 to 13. And then if you look kind of right in the bottom down there, there's a little orange box, and it's hard to see. And it looks like there's a green dot with a coat hanger or something in it. It's hard to tell on this. But basically I think that's a telehandler, but that's kind of where Ritu was sitting, was right in that area, right?
Yep, exactly. And so yeah, they would come, the start finish line was sort of
in the belly.
What?
In the belly of the pig.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it? Yes. I thought it was.
Actually, no. It's the real. It's the hind legs on Harmon.
Yeah. So the start finish line was over, kind of behind Planet Hollywood, right? Kind of.
Yeah. So if you look at the upside down pig, it's where the rear trotters would be, and that's the.
And then they would go around the sphere and then come up, and then turn left at Venetian, and then go all the way down, and then a corner where Cosmo was, they would turn left, and there was this three turn corner where you were, Rob, at turn 14.
Yeah, turn 14. So basically the tail of the upside down piggy is where I was.
There was a lot of because that was a big braking zone. I mean, I think that's where Leclerc caught Checo, right?
Correct.
It was right there. And it was the first day was again a little bit of a shit show with the problem, and we got some pictures of that, but it was an amazing race.
Yeah.
So this is just, and actually we can kind of draw out some lessons from here, Mike and Ritu. So as part of the training package, the marshals had to identify within each car where the various cutoffs were, where the fire extinguishers were. Each car actually has a number of lights on the front, just in front of the driver, which are for the benefit of the marshals and the rescue staff. One of them will tell you whether the car is energized, and Ritu, you mentioned that. The other one is a light that lights up, and this is kind of a mechanism of injury point. So if a car crashes, it's measuring the force put upon the car, and that will then inform the marshals or the rescue staff as to clearly the severity of the incident. So it's a mechanism of injury and what happens to the car. So if you saw Lando Norris crash, his car went off and he got out, but actually listening to the marshal radio, it said the blue light's on, and the blue light is is a high impact crash. And so what that means under the FIA rules is no matter what he says, if he gets up, walks away, says I'm fine, you're going to hospital, mate. And which is exactly what happened. So he was transferred to the medical center and then helicoptered out for further checks because of that mechanism. Now, if the light hadn't been on, he'd have walked off, brushed himself off, been given the all clear and walked away. But again, the safety factor and the safety feature in making sure that driver is fit to drive another day is absolutely, imperative, and that's clear. And so each car, of course, is slightly different. And so, we had to go through a whole set of slides that identified where these things were on the car. The other thing about the cars, of course, is they're doing 200 miles an hour. And if they come to a rampant stop, which is why you have 3 sets of gloves on, the tires are very, very, very hot, and the brakes are in excess of 1,000 degrees. So if you get near the car, then of course that again you're instructed in where to hold the thing and where not to hold it. And if a car just stops in front of you, don't touch the tire because it's going to be roasting.
Yeah. So in that the medical warning light, there is sort of a civilian, I don't know, a layperson similar OnStar.
OnStar.
Other cars measure what's called the change in velocity, or delta V, and so they are able to measure the kind of absolute change in velocity that occurs, and the greater the delta V, the greater the likelihood of injury. And there are some papers from now 15, 20 years ago. I mean, I was early on my time at the NMSP board when we spent a lot of time with OnStar and on this concept of telematics and this idea that when a crash occurred, the car can notify the 911 center and also give a likelihood of injury, as well as tell how many people were in the car and things like that. And it has never taken off. And I think and I don't know if the technology was never there to quite make it happen correctly. The reliability of the Delta V. I think you've seen, you remember they used to have the Batman OnStar commercials and even like General Motors really pushed OnStar. And while I know they still have the same, I don't see those ads anymore, things like that. So it certainly seems like that push for that technology package is kind of humped and kind of gone away. But I do think that it would be helpful to know like what the likelihood of injury is. And I think the physics is pretty easy, and the car can tell responders, exactly what were the forces involved.
So this is kind of the marshal pre-training, and again, probably half the folk had been were from done the Miami, done Circuit of the Americas in where you are, Mikey, and obviously this is very much refresher. There was no apologies for the fact we're going to continue to refresh you even if you've done this before. So the point here is that there's always an opportunity to refresh and remember and remind, and so some interesting lessons over the wall. of course, and this is where I kind of relate comes to Tim's, right? Traffic incident management. This is Tim's on steroids, and I mentioned this to you two before, that the cars are coming past at 240 miles an hour, 220 miles an hour potentially. If you get it wrong, if you go over the wall without having a plan, and without having permission, and without having backup, then you're going to run into problems. And so therefore there is that kind of pre-training, knowing what you're going to do, when you're going to do, and obviously having great communication. And that we were drilled on, unless you hear the words "go now," you don't go anywhere, because the folk in control are with race control. The marshal controllers are next to the race controllers. They're looking at the cars on the circuit. If there's a piece of debris, minor case is a piece of debris, like I think in Abu Dhabi that Ricardo had to come in because he ripped one of his face protector things. What do you call them? The helmet. What's the term?
The tearaway.
The tearaway, right? And so that got stuck in his engine duct.
Tearaway.
But let's say that flew off onto the middle of the track, which could have then been sucked up into another car's system. A marshal would potentially have to go onto the track to remove that piece of litter, right? And so that requires a lot of choreography in terms of knowing where the cars are on the track, getting permission from race control to send a marshal in to remove it, and you're going to have to jump in there, get it, and jump out. And so the command control communication, there's a takeaway, has to be absolute, but also the fact that this is traffic incident management. If there's a crash, however, then of course you've got to put a lot of vehicles and a lot of people onto the track, and it's a bit like the move over rule. The drivers have to move over, but we've all got to be aware of the dangers. And if you actually look at some of the NHTSA stuff, it's not just emergency ambulance workers or emergency responders that suffer
Tow
incidents
operators
and issues. It's tow truck operators, and lots of them. And so there is some real Tim's takeaways here as well. And the fact is, you've got to have a plan, you've got to be controlled, and you've got to be coordinated. And so go now. There we are.
And you have to have, you have to have a language that is clear and understandable. I think the point of this slide is a great incident management. There's really no jargon.
There's no jargon.
It's like very straightforward and easily understood, and terms and commands.
And absolutely no 10 codes.
Right.
Thank God.
Hurrah. And again, a similar thing. Again, talking about, kind of fending off and other such protections that you need to think about. And you talked about physics, Ritu. This is one where, of course, we had the run. I could actually walk around the entire track in between the wall and the kind of the fence, as it were. And we're allowed to do that in breaks, but obviously when the race is on, you're at your post, and your post is established in a relatively safe zone. But you were very carefully cautioned that takeaway number whatever, shit happens here, because you could be there as the car hits the barrier. And so that was very much a point made to us, that you've got to be you keep your wits about you all the time. You just don't know when it's going to happen.
Situation.
Yeah, I feel like
yes.
Yeah, like the fact that walls can move, like that is so poignant. How much time and Tim's, right? Like, how much time do we spend in traffic? How much do we spend?
Right.
Like, literally, the riskiest thing we can do is be out in traffic, and you might think that these dividers on a freeway are going to save you, or whatever it may be, but clearly walls can move. Right.
The forces at work here are immense and devastating if you're on the wrong side of it.
Yeah. All right. So what we got here
again. So this is a Formula 4 car, and so part of what does a marshal do? Actually, a lot of folk ask me that, and so the marshal is responsible for keeping the track clear. Whether it's actually literally sweeping your area before the race starts, whether it's taking any debris off the course when the race is on, through to assisting the drivers out of the vehicle, which we will see at the end, which I actually did, through to getting vehicles off the track. And so that's the role of it. And so one of the things you had to practice was teamwork, right? So teamwork is essential. And it's a case of, when you're on the track, you get your crane hoist, whatever the technical term for that vehicle is, in identifying where the lifting points are, who's going on there, who has what role, and more importantly, who's in charge. Because when everybody's talking, nobody's listening. Okay, and there's a point there. And so identifying and rehearsing those routines and those procedures, and dare I say those protocols, right? So we're rehearsing the protocol, identifying what we do, and then more importantly, who's in charge. And we talk about pit crew CPR. This is a sort of pit crew operation here, literally on a car, to get it off the track. And so there is understanding who's in charge, who's calling the shots. And interestingly, I was having a police-based conversation about, when they've got a suspect somewhere, and of course every cop is shouting, "Stop, hands up, lay down, don't move." When you start doing that, you're confusing the suspect and actually confusing the situation. And so identifying who the voice is absolutely key in situations such as this, because you've got to be slick in order to get off the track. It's not about standing there and getting on TV. It's about getting on and getting off. Random Rob photo just segues into the next section, I think. So safety first. Prior to any race, the safety car, which you will see zooming around when there's a safety car called, also is literally responsible for safety. And so they go around prior to the race. Every marshal, every firefighter, every safety official has to be on the track with their full PPE on, to demonstrate that you're ready to go. So gloves on, helmets on, you can wave at them as they go past, but actually you're showing them that you're ready to go. And so, again, kit and equipment has to be present and be ready to be used. It's not like, it's not the classic, "Oh, I left the monitor in the truck when I went in to see the patient." You got to have it on you. And so the firefighters here, and they're Clark County firefighter paramedics, if I pan down, they've got their monitors, they've got a small backboard, they've got various extraction devices showing working. And so safety and demonstrating that you are ready to go was, again, part and parcel of the prep for the event.
So there are a couple of groups of individuals here. We talked about the marshals,
Yep,
and we talked about sort of like the people which, by the way, I don't want to give it away too much, but I mean, they're volunteers, right? But there's also a group of people that are sort of paid to be there, right?
Yep. So this is actually the Turn 14 team, and so they are extraction specialists and the firefighters and the doc. And the guy on the right-hand side is Dr. Martos, and he's a trauma surgeon from Miami, and he kind of does the medical control for all of F1 America. And bizarrely, I knew him from my days in the Pan American Trauma Society. And so these are the professionals, let's call them that for the second, the professionals that are there waiting to be deployed onto the track to do anything that's obviously technical, which is extraction, which is, life-saving as such, as opposed to the marshals who are there to, I'm going to get you out and get the car off and then hand you over. Here's the marshal group. Now, this is another takeaway. So marshals, everybody that was coming up to us going, "Oh, yes, are you on the world circuit? Do you fly around the world doing this?" We're like, no, we're all volunteers. And what do you mean you're volunteers? So the 500 marshals are all volunteers. And they're extreme enthusiasts. And they do this on local circuits, Laguna Seca and other places like in California and others. Mm-hmm. And I likened it to the fact of, imagine you're an official on your Friday night lights. You just stand there and throw the flag on a Friday night, right? This is your chance to officiate the Super Bowl. And this is the way it's kind of viewed. And so they pay their own way there. They pay their own flights there. They pay for their own hotel at the Luxor. And who wants to pay to stay at the Luxor, by the way? Another story for another day. Lots of stories of the 10th floor and up, water wasn't working.
Not a great spot.
But here's the corollary, right? Like EMS, nothing would happen without the volunteers, without the goodwill. 500 of them, absolutely essential. And of course, another takeaway is just the amazing backstories for the people that you meet. Take time to meet the people that you're with. Take time to talk to them. I had two on this team here. We had two Canadians, a South African, the guy on the right with the beard. He was our team leader, but actually his name's Mike, and he's a rocket scientist, rocket engineer for SpaceX, but just loves Formula One. And so you get to meet these amazing people, and they're not just the Ghostbuster lookalikes, but they actually have some amazing stories with some amazing experience, and they've been all over. Some of them have been all over the world doing this.
There was so in our grandstands there was a marshal group. I don't know I sent some pictures of me with them. I don't know if you had you put those in the other slides, Mike, but there was one of them that looked almost exactly like you, Rob. And we were sitting in Bellagio after practice 3 and before quali, just sitting there kind of having a beverage, chatting, waiting it out. And some of the marshals had a break and were able to go into Bellagio. And I saw this guy that looked just like you. And I started waving. I'm like, Rob, Rob, Rob. And it's now looking at him now, he doesn't really look like you, but the guy over my left shoulder there. And he came over and goes, my name's not Rob. And then I'm like, oh, wait, where are you stationed? And he turned out he was in the same grandstand.
Yeah.
As
I got a
guy.
photograph of that sign too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so, but the marshals that I talked to this group of, kind of each of the 3 days, and they were I mean, everybody was so excited to be there, and happy to be there, and they were all volunteers, and nobody really complained, even though these days were long, and they were a good group.
Yep, really long days.
Great. Thanks jumping in. Thanks for the information and sharing your experiences. So, that's awesome. Thanks for hopping on here, brother.
Yeah.
So I presume this is the view from your office, Rob.
This is the view from my office. This
straight.
is this is why I had, some people paid millions for the tickets. I had $1 billion view, right? So I'm looking down the street as they're coming down, all the action's happening here. They're coming in at 200 miles an hour. They're slowing down from 200 to 80 to 70 to get around that corner through the chicane and then take off again, and the speed and power. So that's one view. If you look the other way, you can see them driving off, re-accelerating, and just the power is amazing. But of course, people were going, "Oh yes, you're in the catcher's mitt. You're in chaos corner. It's all going to happen." Even before we got out on the track, like, you guys are going to get busy, and it didn't disappoint. But again, that's just sort of the long view down the street.
And if you look at that straight away, and you see those, there's a sort of bank of lights along the left side. Those are right in front of the grandstands where we were sitting. You can see the traffic lights, and for quali, we were basically sitting right where those traffic lights are. That's for the actual race, we were sitting farther down. Almost, if you look way down, there's a bridge down there. You could see that. So this is in the day. This is the straight that Rob was at, and that's our grandstand actually. And you can see there's traffic on the strip. So again, the reason why this racing happened so late at night, I think, one, they wanted to have the race at night. They wanted to have the Vegas lights going, having sphere, when there's a caution flag, have the entire sphere turn yellow. I mean, that's very Vegas-y. But the other thing is they had decided that they wanted the strip to be open in the day. And so again, a lot of that stuff, the strip, the main Las Vegas Boulevard was open. And these things all look kind of janky in the daytime, just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, compared to this is a much sexier looking, view with all the lights and glitz, and it's really good.
This is the behind the scenes at Turn 14. So you have the marshals, which are kind of, first line, first responders, and then behind you've got the vehicles that are going to come and lift the cars. You've got the tow trucks. You've got the Clark County ambulance, and obviously the medical car with the doc, who was an EM doc, all standing by to stand by. And they didn't have a lot of business at our turn in terms of crashed cars. We had 2 broken down cars, which I think photographs to follow. But again, the resource that goes into putting this on is mind-boggling.
So, Rob, from my years of watching F1, I know that there's always been the medical car, right? It follows the cars
Yes.
around on the first lap. You know, obviously when that massive wreck, and God, where was that at when that Haas driver almost died? Was that Abu Dhabi? No, where was
Grosjean.
that?
Grosjean.
Yes, when Roman Grosjean
The man on
almost got
fire.
it. The safety
Yeah, the
car
man on
was
fire.
Yeah, they were right on it. But I noticed, and we'll see it again here in a little bit too, but this is like a Tahoe. So are there multiple medical cars?
Yes. So
in
you've
addition
got
to
the medical car with the imagine him as the OMD of the race, right? So he's in the fast car. He's going to be going round, and it's the same car as the safety car. So this was an AMG Merc that could do 200 miles an hour around the track. So he would deploy to be, the medical director for the entire track. But each cutoff point, like we were, had a doctor in another medical car, in a Tahoe car, and you have a doctor and a paramedic in the car, and a 2 firefighter paramedics in the truck, in the ambulance. And so you had, think of it as that. So it's OMD in the fast car, and then docs and paramedics around the circuit.
That makes sense.
Here's my e-hole.
This is
Mikey.
finally what everyone's been. Everyone's been waiting to see Rob's
e-hole.
E-hole.
So when you've got sort of entry gates where like we had an entry gate where the trucks could come in and out and cars could go in and out, but obviously if you're in along the fence line, the way that a marshal gets in and out is through this, which is the entry hole, or the emergency entry hole, the e-hole. And so again, this is why it needs to be coordinated, because you could have a car zipping past there. Thank you very much for that takeaway. It's not a takeaway, Mikey, but we'll further for tonight only. And so this is why you need to be coordinated, because somebody's got to leap through there, pick up Daniel Ricciardo's tearaway, and leap back through that hole in a choreographed, ballet of command control coordination. Yeah. And so I thought it was quite interesting, because that's how you get in and out of the track. So it's just a window.
I would, I'd give it a go. It would be tight, I think.
Yeah, and there's my head through my e-hole, Mike.
That's so good.
Didn't think I could do that, did you?
Look at that. That is, and this must have been, is this the start finish, or where is this?
Yeah, that's the start finish. And so across the way there, you've got all of the team garages and the control centers. And so this is in a break, so we could actually walk, as I say, you can walk around the track. We had access to walk around the whole place on the outside. I'm on the outside. If we were on the inside, we could have walked through the pits, etc. But so we could only go around the outside, but that's us sort of just stopping to really be nosy and just have a look at the setup. Here we go. Here's another hole, not an e-hole.
Yeah, so we alluded to the sort of 8-minute practice one. For those who aren't familiar with Formula One, it's a 3-day event. So the first day they have 2 practices. The second day they have a third practice and qualification. And then the third day they have the race. Yep. And then sometimes there'll be other events like Formula 2 races or F1 Academy. But this, because it was a new circuit and they had a very limited time on track, all they had was the F1 cars. And so we had flown in, we had gotten to our hotel room, we had thrown all our bags, and we ran to the Bellagio to get settled in for this, for this 8:30 practice one. And the cars were zooming by when all of a sudden Carlos Sainz, who's one of the Ferrari drivers, his car comes flying by, making a loud noise and sparks just flying everywhere. And what had happened was that one of these drain covers that I think there were, Rob, you told me there were 95.
I think there's 100 of them, and they are like what do you call them? Fiber conduits. So it's not, people were thinking it's a massive, storm drain cover. These things are probably a foot in diameter, if that.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like about a foot, and the ground force of the car going over it basically created suction and pulled it out and damaged the car. And
the knock-on ran over it afterwards. And so, Right. Now, here's a takeaway. This is kind of a risk consequence matrix here, but the the risk or the chance of that happening were probably low, but the consequence was massive delays and indeed a class action lawsuit from a local not ambulance chasing this time, Formula One chasing lawyer. So again, be prepared for the unexpected. Situation, not situational awareness, yes, but things will happen, and so the risk consequence of that was a small drain caused a major delay and a lot of unhappy campers.
Yeah, because after 8
Yeah,
minutes,
I never caught the actual. Oh,
I say after 8 minutes, they stopped the practice, and they realized that these drain cover, there were 100 of them on the course,
Yep.
and they had to do something about it, and they couldn't let the cars run anymore. And it's just as, they ultimately they could never test that these things were down because they never had a vehicle with that kind of ground
Yeah.
force go over them. And so they ended up having to cancel all of practice 1 and then repair. Took 4 or 5 hours to repair them.
Yeah.
And then they did practice 2 at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, a number of things here. It wasn't the actual cover that failed; it was the collar that actually sits in the asphalt in which the cover goes into. And so, of course, they hadn't pressure. So we're looking at, you put up that photograph of the cover. It's actually the collar around it that literally got sucked out from the asphalt when the car went over, which is what caused it. So again, you have to think about all points of failure, not just the obvious one. Perhaps that's a takeaway as well. And so, yeah, that was an interesting point. Of course, the next piece is logistics, right? So how do they fix it? They went and got a truck with asphalt in. And of course, asphalt has to be warm to go into the hole to set. And so they don't have these things sitting on the side of the track. They had to call up the plant and say, "Oi, send me 3 trucks full of asphalt to put into the hole, to put into the holes, and then put the lids back on." And so and with quick drying cement and various other things. So that took a while to orchestrate.
Yeah, and then that's us at 2:30 in the morning at the start of P2, and you can see all the empty seats around us because there was a chunk of us that were maybe 50 of us that were there to watch it, but and this was because we were in the MGM section, which was not run by F1, and so they allowed us to go. But I had a friend who had come just for that day, had gone. There was a boxing match that he went to, missed P1, and was planning to go to P2, and hung out with me in the donkey bar till 2 in the morning. Walked over to where he was going to get his seats to watch P2, and they turned him away.
So put that.
I meant to ask you, Ritu, who these guys were.
These are the Voltaggio brothers. They're famous chefs. And we were just walking. We're fans of theirs. We've never been to any of their restaurants. I like to eat, but I've never had a chance to eat their food. But they were serving food in the $11,000 Bellagio club. And after P1 got canceled, we were walking kind of underneath to go meet up with our other friends. And they were just standing there by themselves. And Janet said, "Hey, look, there's the Voltaggio brothers." And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to go walk over there."
Yeah.
And so I said hi, and they were very sweet. I told them that I was a big fan of their work, and they really were appreciative. But they didn't know what had happened. So they were like, "What happened?" And so I explained to them about the cover and canceling and not knowing when practice 2 was going to happen. And so they were like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy." I'm like, "I know." But they're famous chefs that were on Top Chef, and they do the whole kind of chef circuit.
Quick 2 points on this photo here. This is looking down the street, but the red and grey stuff is Tech Pro, which is the sort of shock absorbent barriers. And the concrete fence and the mesh there is actually, each one of those pieces has to be independently checked by the FIA. And there's a little tally plate that says checked by the FIA. That all came from Miami. It had to be shipped on a train from Miami to the race. And I suspect it's being shipped back to Miami for the Miami Grand Prix. But again, another exercise in just the unbelievable logistics of the race. And also that Tech Pro and that barrier you're looking at there, as Ritu's already said, had to be lifted and moved to open up the road for the daytime.
And that's where Lando ended up, right?
Monster effort. He ended up in. Did he? Was he in the tech? I think he did end up in the tech pro, but
Yeah,
not,
he did.
not at our end. But yeah, so that's what saved further injury, but obviously not enough to stop him going to hospital.
Yeah, fun. Other little fact is most of these lights came from the Singapore Grand Prix.
I think the model. I don't think the lights actually came from there. I think they used the same, plan, if you like, to manufacture them. They're all manufactured new, but they based
The
it
impression
on
they said that they had shipped them over. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, fun moment for our law enforcement officers here, because we had Las Vegas MPD stationed with us, and of course the traffic guys immediately got their speed guns out, and as I said, you can clock him, buddy, but you're not going to catch him. But interestingly, the Formula One cars have such a low profile, and they're using LiDAR, going to get the laser dot on the car, because I said, how far can you clock a car? And he said, actually, as far as I can see it away, so it can be 3 miles away, as long as I can get a read on it. But the cars were so low profile, moving so fast, they couldn't actually zero in on the car, which was interesting, until it got really, really close. So
it's pretty interesting as well as that.
What did they clock? You texted me. What did they clock the safety car at?
I think they were, what did I say? 178, I think it was.
I think, yeah, something like that. 177, 178.
Yeah. And so, they had fun, Good for them. It was good to chat and get their backstories. So here's Rob on F1 television on the world is watching me Nico Hulkenberg cruises in. He's had I'm not quite sure what happened, but literally we're sitting there looking, and I had taken a glove off, and so I know it's me because I've got one leather glove outer and one cotton glove inner. So there's Rob. And Nico Hulkenberg is about to get out of the car, and we're about to actually take control. So he literally gets out of the car, and then we take control of the car. So he takes his steering wheel off, he steps out, he puts his steering wheel back on, and then the doctor takes over with him, and then we take over with the car. Thank you. Good indication, Mike. Thanks. So that was kind of the, I think, 47th lap out of 50 when he showed up. And so no sooner had we taken care of him than Tsunoda again gets told to retire the car, and so Yuki Tsunoda from that team came in as well. AlphaTauri, thank you. Yes, and so here comes the
soon to be the Racing Bulls.
The Racing Bulls, yes.
That's what they're saying. That's the rumor mill.
Oh, you mean they're going to go for a name change?
Yeah, they're going to, because the AlphaTauri name is the Red Bull fashion brand, and I think they're not ponying up the bucks anymore. And
my lesson from earlier, I can confirm the tires were hot. So that was an interesting one. And so again, the cars are about to be lifted. They're going back to race control. The doc, the EM doc, took over and checked out. And so here's a quick selfie that I'm not supposed to have taken, but there's Tsunoda sitting in the front of the medical car with the doc, and Nico Hulkenberg in the back. Waiting for to be cleared again, even though they're the superstar drivers, they can't go back until they're told they can go back. And so I actually stopped and had a chat and a fist pump with Tsunoda, who is maybe 4 times smaller than me, I've got to tell you. But the takeaway from there quickly is gratitude, right? So Yuki Tsunoda, as he's known for, got out and used every cuss word under the sun because he couldn't complete the race. The nice German Mr. Hulkenberg arrived and was very grateful for the support and the assistance. And so just take a moment to thank those that have done something for you.
I love that. Well, that's most of the picks. So some of these were just some of the ones that Ritu sent over that we wanted to share. Some of them we've already seen or not, but we slide decks here. So I just wanted to make sure that we got all the ones there. Again, that's 2:30 in the morning. We'll talk a little bit about the shoey for the people that don't know, Ritu.
So Daniel Ricciardo, who is one of the, if you've watched Drive to Survive and how we got into Formula One, we went through an open wheel racing phase where we really got into IndyCar, and then kind of had gotten away from it. And then during the pandemic, we started watching Drive to Survive. And what you learn is that these are 10 teams, 20 drivers, and it's really like a high school that flies around the country and around the world. It's a $2.5 billion high school, and everybody complains about everybody else and whines and cries, and it's kind of a big soap opera. But Daniel Ricciardo, or Danny Rick, is one of the drivers. He's probably the biggest personality in the whole driver cadre, and a lot of the show is focused on him because he's such a big personality. And he does the shoey, which is when he's on the podium, you get the big thing of champagne, and he pours the champagne in the shoe and drinks it, which is just disgusting sounding.
Absolutely.
But that's the shoey. But that he didn't originate that, right? I thought it was a lot older than that, but he that's what he's famous for. So at Bellagio, you could get a shoey cocktail. If you got, which was basically they gave you a shoe, and then for the $70 version and the $135 version. Yeah. So then that was in a bar, like overlooking the fountain from behind the grandstands. I mean, it was that, we talked a lot about we talked a lot about Rob's work and being on the event and being ready for what happens on course. But the other thing is there were so many people there. I mean, I've been in Vegas for other events and it's always crazy crowded, but it was just the amount of people and special pop-up food and drink and shopping that was all in place just for this event was really pretty impressive.
They said 315,000 for the weekend. I just double checked it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So you guys are really broken up there. I'm not sure if it was just my internet, but
I could hear Mike.
The shoey basics there.
I could hear Mike very clearly. So, could you hear the shoey stuff?
Yeah, It's just sort of been shitty all night, and I don't know what the heck's going on. Maybe F1 is putting a copyright strike against us for talking about them
again.
Yeah, like they did before. Yeah, but anyway, well, listen, we're right about an hour. We should probably start to wrap up. I think there's lots of good takeaways, and we would be right. There's a huge, anytime you put all these humans together, there is everything from training that needs to be done. There is, command and control. There is sort of following the chain of command. There's protocols to follow. Like, I mean, really, if you think about it, it's a macro, EMS little mini system that was going on there, right? Like from just a command and control standpoint. So we knew it'd be some good lessons learned with that.
Oh, we lost Rob.
Did we just lose Rob?
I think we did.
Okay. We'll see. Maybe it was him causing us all the problems.
He said he was only getting about every third word. So,
oh, geez.
All right. So, yeah,
well,
command and control. You have to have systems in place. I think the other take home, too, is that planning is significantly, you're talking about all of this in place for a 2-hour event at the end of the day. And so that when you're talking about a big event like this, the amount of planning that goes into place to be ready is sort of an order of magnitude bigger than the actual event itself in terms of prep work, training, all that stuff.
Yeah. And I think if you've never done any large scale exercise, you can attest to that, right? I think back to a number of the first one we ever worked together, Ritu, Top Off back in the day, Top Off 2, I think it was. Stayed on that thing for months, a year. Yeah.
Even though it was supposed to be a spontaneous terrorist attack.
My system rebooted itself, so I'm back in full force. But my other claim to fame, my friends, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So as my friends in Richmond will remember that we were the first city in the US to host, after a 15-year gap, the UCI World Cycling Championships. So that took us a year of prep. We starting off with the collegiate Cycling Championships, which was a test exercise where the UCI guys came in and saw how we did emergency management, all the way through to the exercise where I was actually delighted honored to be a unified commander there. And so going from that as a unified commander to the guy with the broom at the Formula One was quite interesting to see both ends of this command and control communication integrated command spectrum. So it was fascinating to have done both of those. Excuse me.
Yeah, and it was, think about when we had Dr. Roth on the podcast last year to talk about how the NFL prepares for every game, both at the player level as well as for the fans. So again, in EMS, we like to think that we are, bell rings, we answer, we figure it out. And to some degree that is us, but we're much better at figuring it out if there's the pieces that we need are already in place.
I think this directly reads across, Ritu, because we often talk about the cost of readiness, right? And so it's not just when the ambulance turns up, it's getting ready to deliver the ambulance to you. And so now the cost of readiness here was what, 500 billion? I don't know, whatever the hell it was. But even so, there was a cost of readiness.
Yes, it was.
And a standby and a preparedness to deploy for those few moments when they were needed. And so there's a direct read across to life there, life in EMS.
Agreed.
Yep, 100%. All right, good. Well, listen, let me get us out of here. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences, and Rob, your picks, and it was just great. And like I said, I knew we would have some crossover that we could sort of relate this back. And congratulations, Rob, on having a talk in the can, ready to go at a moment's notice. If you
there we
go.
Can we do one thing though? Can we actually pay homage to Makara Trusty, who was, of course, another member of our F1 Insider group? Who and I commend everyone to go away and read her article on EMS One, because when she was in Austin at the last the Austin Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas, she actually wrote an article from her experience and applying that to EMS. So as well as listening to us, go and find Makara's article on EMS One as well. So I want to give that a plug.
That is perfect. Awesome. Good. Well, with that, I will get us out of here. On behalf of Rob Lawrence, Dr. Ritu, Sahni, Mike Verkest, you've been watching and listening to the EMS Show. Thanks very much for hanging out with us for a bit, and we will see you on the next one. Who knows when that'll be? Sooner than later.
Or at NAMSP in January, folks. If you're going to be there, we'll see you there, right?
Or
we will see you at NAMSP in January. Gosh.
Yeah,
you got to plug that.
Yep, for sure. Well, we'll have another episode before then, but make sure you're planning on being at Austin. So, all right, guys, you guys all have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Near you, folks. So look out for that.
Yes, exactly.